been on YouTube for 3 years. And you don't care. Well, Rosa might not care, but I would like to say thank you guys very much for following, for watching my videos, and commenting over the last 3 years. A lot of you guys have been around pretty much since the beginning, which also was basically the start of the panini. So thank you. I'm so happy we got through that together, and I really love reading your comments and keeping up with your writing journeys, and I just really appreciate it. I'm bad at the mushy stuff, so that's all I'm gonna say, but thank you. So I thought it'd be fun to do another Q&A. It's been a little while. Let's jump right into it with our first one. Have you ever had to reject a ghostwriting project because it conflicted with your personal beliefs, such as a morally repugnant main character, plot that glamorizes religious trauma, romanticizes toxic relationships, or gives a particular political agenda a happy ending? Or do those get vetted out during the consultation process? Yes. This has not happened that often because the vast majority of my ghostwriting projects that I get through Readsy, and I have a lengthy profile set up there that shows, it includes like lists of the types of books that I write and also a list of my own published novels. So anyone who reaches out to me, most of them have already looked at my profile pretty carefully and can see my interests, what I like and don't like. And honestly, there's a lot about me if you Google me, and anyone who is interested in hiring a ghostwriter is probably going to Google that person. So I think, you know, that influences the type of person that I attract as a ghostwriter. That said, yes, I've definitely had a couple of requests that were interesting. One in particular that stands out was just basically someone who wanted me to ghostwrite his manifesto about a particular conspiracy theory. That was an easy, pass. But I have also had requests for some reason, even though I make it really clear I don't do this, I get a lot of requests for memoirs for people who have been through some very harrowing things, and I pass on that not because I don't want to write about those issues, but because I don't write memoirs. I'm just not, that's a totally different area of ghostwriting, and I don't do that. But anyway, yes, I vet those. I've never gotten so far into a process where I've actually been, had a phone call or a Zoom with a client and realized, I disagree fundamentally with their project. It's something that, so far at least, I've been able to catch really early on. Next one, has your inner critic ever been so strong that it stopped you from being able to write for a period of time? If so, how did you learn to live with it or overcome it? Oh my gosh, yes. I think I've vlogged about this a few times over the last few years. My biggest kind of, I don't know, meltdown would be a little bit of a dramatic word, but when I found out my agent was retiring when was this? The summer of 2021, I think? I don't even know. That was just for a lot of reasons, just kind of made me, I abandoned the project I was working on at the time. And that wasn't the first time it had happened, but way before I started my channel, I threw myself into working on a book that I thought had a really good pitch and was really high concept and had a good chance of selling, and that was really all I liked about it. I liked some elements about it, but I didn't care about it in my heart. It was like classic writing to trends and not writing something that you just want to write because you're passionate about it. And that burned me out hard because it didn't work, So what I do, I think how I overcome it is, first of all, I have to take time off from writing. For me, there's no real extended time off all writing because I ghostwrite for a living. But with ghostwriting, it's different since they're not my books, so I can continue to do that. And in the process, keep up my skills and everything, and importantly, pay my bills while I take time away from my own fiction. I just need time away. I need time away to kind of reset my brain and recognize that panicky feeling that the industry gives all of us, which is that we're not enough and our timing is all wrong and everybody's gonna get a book deal but us, and that pressure that's just inherent with the way the industry works. It feels very real, but it's also non-existent because the truth is book deals are made every single day and you could be next. I don't know. I just need time away from that. I need to let my brain kind of cool down and stop that panicky, I have to get something on submission or querying or whatever right now, and go back to, wait a minute, what is it I enjoy about writing? Let me get in touch with that again. Let me just wait until I feel that spark, you know, something that I actually want to write because I enjoy the act of writing fiction again. And in some cases that's taken a few months, like several months, before I feel it again. So yeah, I think it just taking time off. I think that would be my biggest tip for that. All right, next one. Lately, I consistently get feedback that readers don't connect strongly with my characters. Any tips and tricks for making characters feel more real? I think one of the first videos I ever did, definitely within the first few months of having this channel, was about this topic. So I will find it and link it up here. I think there's a lot of reasons agents and editors might say they don't connect with the character, and there are a lot of reasons an author might write a character that isn't particularly relatable to a large enough audience. And it's a very complicated topic, so I'm just going to speak to my own experience with it and the reasons that happened to me early in my career, because that was the biggest, like by far biggest reason for rejection I got on my very first novel, which received 130 something rejections from agents, was that the characters weren't relatable. There was no voice, there was no connection. And that was, again, for me personally, that I was just so into plot and world building. That was, and there's nothing wrong with that. That was the spark for me for that particular book. I was super excited about the world, like the premise that I had created. It was a science fiction thing. And I really love plotting. I'm an outliner. I've always just been, I like planning out plots. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that, okay? But I created a plot, and then I didn't realize it at the time, but I kind of had these cardboard cutout characters who were just kind of there to go through the puzzle that I had set out for them. And that was the first big lesson I learned with writing a book. I tried to give them all unique little quirks and personality traits, but we are, you know, looking back on it, oh, I don't want to admit this, but I gotta. Okay, so this was like 2008, 2009. This was a long time ago. I had this big cast of characters, and I definitely had some stereotypes. I definitely had some token characters, by which I mean, for every single one of them, their whole personality, it boiled down to like one piece of their identity. And that's, you know, that's a really common mistake that first-time writers make. Don't beat yourself up about it. And I'm not saying that you, commenter, are doing this. I mean, for all I know, you know, your characters are very well developed. But this is just what my issue was. And I really just had to learn how to get to know my characters as people. All of the complex things that motivated them. And then make sure that they were the ones driving the plot, not creating a plot for them to just kind of like meander through. For me, this is my biggest tip for you right now is, what's your character's secret? Because I think every protagonist has a secret. It doesn't have to be something explosive. It's not like they're like Dexter or something, like secretly, you know, serial killer or whatever. But everybody has something they don't want even the people they're closest to know. Does not have to be a big thing. But I have found for myself that once I start asking questions about that secret and dig into it a little bit more, it helps me to see my character as a much more real person, and then consequently they are more relatable because I figure out why they're keeping that a secret. It's not just the secret that's important, it's why they don't want other people to know. Because that says a lot about them as a person, and that's something that people are going to connect with. We connect with motives. We're like, we understand when we see a character who's like kind of keeping something in, and the way it makes them feel, and we're like, oh yeah, I get that, you know? Even if we've never been there. I think that's where, that's the piece that was missing for me anyway. So that was a little bit meandering, but I hope it helps. Next question, this might be my favorite question. If you were queen of publishing and you had the power to make anything happen, what changes would you make to the industry to ensure long-term viability and success? Queen of publishing. Yes, I really like this question. So this is really hard to answer because there are so many problems in the publishing industry that it's like, where do I start? And also, I have no idea how to run a business, much less a massive corporation like that. I come up with a lot of ideas, a lot of things where when I run into an issue as an author, I'm like, why don't publishers just do this? And the thing is, I'm sure there's actually very valid reasons they don't do this. I don't know what I'm talking about. But you know what? The industry is not doing so great right now. We've got like strikes. I mean, the HarperCollins strike was settled, by the way, and there are raises happening, and that is wonderful. I'm happy to hear it. But I mean, still, HarperCollins workers were on strike for like over a month, I believe. That was really long. And it's just sad that that's what they had to do. And then, you know, there's the whole DOJ thing, suing Penguin Random House and Simon & Schuster to stop the merger successfully. And you have these CEOs sitting on the stand under oath and pretty much admitting that they're throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks method with big books is like completely failing, and yet they continue to do it. So like my gut reaction on this question was, I want to say something dramatic like, get rid of 7-figure advances, period. I don't care who you are. I don't care what the book is. I think that's unnecessary and harmful. That book might still fail. You're destroying that author's career if it does, because how are they going to get a book deal again if you gave them $1 million and their book crashed? And it is taking resources from other mid-list books that could benefit from just like, I don't know, $10,000 going into their marketing, just like a drop in the bucket, you know what I mean? That's my gut reaction. But I really think if I were to sit and think about this a little bit longer, I feel like the changes I want to see happen for authors, they're not going to happen until the changes that we need to see for the staff at these houses happen. And so I think that's what I would do. I would start with, you know, what happened at HarperCollins happening across the board. People who are working these full-time jobs in the editorial, managing ed, marketing, publicity, contracts departments, they need to be paid a wage that is livable for Manhattan, which, you know, is a lot. I would get rid of unpaid internships, because I've said this a million times and I will continue to harp on it. For an industry that pretends to be so progressive and does all this virtue signaling about diversity, when you have unpaid internships, when that's your only way to get in, you might as well put a sign out saying trust fund kids only need apply. Like, no, pay your interns. Like, make it actually possible for people who don't have a financial safety net to get into your industry. What else would I do? Oh, and I've talked about this in a previous video, but over the course of the last few years since the pandemic, there's been this phenomenon of people leaving positions and those positions never getting filled. Therefore, departments are shrinking and workers are scrambling to cover the, a bigger workload, and CEOs are looking at it and saying, oh, see, you can handle it. So they just never refill those positions. That's ridiculous. And I would go ahead and re-expand. I don't want to say expand because, again, they were shrunk down. I would add a few more positions to every department at least the big houses. And again, that includes editorial, managing ed, publicity, marketing, sales, and contracts. Because I have to tell you guys, when I got my very first book deal with Penguin, this was before the Penguin Random House merger, so this was just Penguin's Children, and it took 6 months to get my first contract. I was told that there is one, or at least this was a while ago, one contracts guy that did all the contracts for all of Penguin's Children. I don't know if that was true. It came from a very reliable source. If that's the case, that is insane, because when we wait 6 to 9 months for a contract, we're waiting 6 to 9 months for our payment. And in the meantime, we're writing and we're doing a ton of work. And it's just, expand the staffs, no unpaid internships, give everybody a raise. I would start there so that the staffs at these houses can actually function the way they are supposed to function. And I think that would be the best starting place before we address the issues that actually affect authors, because that would have the, I hate to use the phrase, but trickle down effect of helping authors as well. All right, next one. What, from your perspective as a traditionally published author, are the deciding factors in whether a book sells well? I remember you mentioning that for middle grade, being picked for some sort of event like the Scholastic Book Fair is a huge advantage, and I wonder if you know from friends, colleagues, etc., what usually drives sales in other age categories. This is just kind of the magic question that everybody wishes they knew. The truth is, I don't think any of us can predict it. There are definitely, I mean, trends are a thing, and you can sometimes see in hindsight how a book for middle grade, young adult, adult, whatever, just hit at the right time. It touched the right nerve. It came into the zeitgeist at the right moment to really take off. But that kind of a thing is so hard to predict that I honestly don't know. With middle grade, I've talked about the Scholastic Fair, and I will continue to do so because right now more than ever, I think school and library is just absolutely key for middle grade authors. And the reason I say now more than ever is because Barnes & Noble, as we know, has decided to essentially stop stocking all middle grade hardcover unless you are a super big giant brand name. And that is actually including a lot of like incredibly successful best-selling / award-winning middle grade authors will not have their hardcovers stocked at Barnes & Noble. And that really, I mean, that just is such a blow to our potential trade sales that we have to look at the school and library market. And Scholastic does a lot of cool stuff. It's not, I mean, you guys know, if you're in the US at least, or I think if you're in, you know, Canada, the UK, I think the Scholastic Book Fair is, you know, definitely somewhat international. It's not just the catalogs that go out to the schools and the fairs that are set up in the schools. They're also doing a lot of really cool stuff like, I'm going to totally blank on the name of this, but I know one of my books, I think it's The Dog's Meow, was brought into this kind of ebook library streaming catalog that Scholastic offers for their classrooms. And it's basically, it means it's almost like Netflix for books that kids have access to on their tablets in school. And for every read my book gets, that's how like what I earn from that is determined. I don't know the details. Yes, I read the contract. No, I don't understand it. But things like that, you know, with Barnes & Noble being what it is, and just as hard as it is to get into bookstores nowadays anyway, I think school and library is the key. It's hard for me to speak to young adult and adult and what drives sales, because it really is just a matter of timing. And I think, I'm sorry I don't have an answer to that, but I really think every publicist and marketing, you know, director out there would love to have an answer for this, but it's a guessing game. That's just sadly how it is, I think, at least to me. All right, next one. Is it possible for writers below the age of 18 to get published before they become an adult? And are small presses more likely to take on minors than major publishers? It is absolutely possible for minors to get book deals. I personally know several authors who got their start as teenagers who, you know, I mean, have funny stories like how they queried literary agents, got an offer, and then when the agent sent them the contract, they were like, I need my mom to look at this. And the agent was like, wait, what? Because they had no idea that the person was underage. It's definitely possible. And in a lot of cases, it's a potential marketing angle, because if you are a teenager writing for teenagers, that's a marketing angle. I mean, some people think that's unfair, but frankly, I know when I was a teenager, if I had heard that someone my age had written a book, that would have made me more compelled to read it. I would have been like, oh my gosh, that's so cool, they're published. You know, it's cool, it's neat. It doesn't mean that, you know, we should necessarily favor or disfavor, is that a word, authors because of their ages. There is a lot of ageism in publishing, but frankly, I think if you write a stellar book and you're 16 years old, like, I think you have a very good shot at getting a deal. In terms of smaller presses versus larger, I don't know. I think that's just kind of, I don't know if that would be necessarily more true for younger writers than all writers right now. I do know that the general plan of submission for most literary agents is to start with the big houses. and then query the smaller houses, because with the big houses, obviously you get a better chance of getting a bigger advance for your author, and we're just always looking for more money. I don't know though if that means you necessarily have a better chance at smaller houses. A lot of smaller houses are small by choice, and they are incredibly deliberate about what they publish. They only publish books of a certain genre, or they're just, I don't want to say they're more particular, but they are. They're more particular because they're smaller and they can't really afford to do the throw the spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks tactics of like Penguin Random House and HarperCollins. So yes, definitely you can get published as a teenager. I don't know if your odds would necessarily be better with a smaller press. It would depend on the press. I have a ton of questions left to answer, and I'm going to get to them, but time just kind of got away from me this week. So I'm going to make this part 1, and I will get part 2 up next week. If you asked a question, do not worry, I will get to it. Hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you next week with another one. Bye.